Hello, my name is Hugh, and if you haven't met me before, I'm a producer for High Design and Retro Tech, and I'm here in my detective office, as always, where I try to piece together the clues to figure out these ancient strains and their stories. So today we're going to be doing something a little more fun again. Going to be going through this Reddit post I found that describes different types of oil and what they are, because there's all the batter, wax, rosin, all of that. And I found a nice chart from Leafly. So we're going to read through it and then we're going to see how accurate it is and what some of the comments say. So let's get to it. So here we have it, our cannabis concentrates. Zoom in on there a little more. So here we go. A cool guide that describes different types of cannabis concentrates. First, we have oil, aka distillate, blanket term for thick, oily extracts mostly found in vape carts, from basic and cheap to award winning and bank busting. I'm immediately going to stop it right here and say the fact that it says AKA distillate, that is not necessarily the same as a blanket term for thick, oily extracts. Because you could have live resin that's been activated for carts. Distillate is when it's literally been distilled through an alcohol extraction to just get THC. So I would say here that's a huge difference. I'm not a huge distillate fan myself. I try to avoid that at all costs. Next, we have wax, aka crumble, a drier consistency, widely available, easy to make, versatile. Find it in wax pens, dab rigs, or sprinkled on bowls. I mean, I think it's been a while since this term's been used, but yeah, you could have some waxy weed and call it, I mean, some waxy oil. I don't even know what to call it now. You could have a waxy extract and call it wax, but probably aren't going to find it in wax pens anymore, like actual wax, unless you're talking about the kind that you load it up one at a time. Next, we have bubble hash, aka water hash. So, crumbly dried product of ice water agitation and screen filtration. Wide range of color, quality, price, terpenes, and ways to enjoy. So yeah, I would say this is probably my favorite because even though it can have more plant matter, I don't mind some not necessarily lower quality but less refined bubble hash that you can just smoke, put on your bowls, on your joints, still get that natural terpenes. There's completely only water soluble, so it's I mean completely solvent free. Next up, we have rosin, thick, clear, tinted sap, all natural, made without volatile solvents, super popular in 2020. It's easily made at home. Okay, so they did not explain rosin very well here at all. So yeah, these two definitely the best. That's what you're going to want to look for in everything, solvent free. Moving on, live resin. Okay, this is a good one. Beloved extract from fresh frozen buds can have more terpene power than regular dried cured weed. I think live resin has become kind of a confusing term recently. They call almost everything live resin. Doesn't really make sense to me. I think a better word for live resin is high quality BHO. Most of this stuff is BHO. That's the main difference, is what the extraction process is. So going back, distillate is an alcohol extraction. Wax, most likely BHO again. Bubble hash and rosin, solvent free. So those are the ones you're really going to want to look for. Live resin, since everyone fresh freezes their weed before extracting it now for the most part, I think live resin has kind of just become the main term that people call BHO, and they're kind of trying to use it as a high quality BHO, which I think is fair. Live resin, high quality live resin BHO can be just as terpy, just as clean as a bubble hash or a rosin. So I think that's what can confuse people, is that there's a range of live resin qualities. And the term resin also kind of throws people off because you think of the stuff that you scrape from your pipe. Moving on, we have sauce. So let's see what it says. Terpene rich hybrid of runny oil and chunky potent THC crystals. Must be kept cool, enjoyed almost exclusively in dab rigs. Okay, so we can see here we have diamonds next to the sauce. So basically, that's just how much THC crystals you have compared to terp sauce. So if you have a bunch of crushed up diamonds in your sauce, it's sauce. If you have larger THCA crystals, I guess you'd call them diamonds. Like the crystals themselves are what you would call the diamonds, and then the sauce would be the terp sauce around it. So these two can kind of count as one, I would say. But regardless, not a bad product, not my favorite. I definitely don't really go for this. But when I first started seeing it, maybe 2017, it was like crazy. People thought, "Oh my god, diamonds!" And yeah, I mean, it does get you really high, but I think keeping the THC more chemically bonded to the terpenes is probably overall better. But to each their own. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. Basically, you can even make diamonds from rosin if you heat it correctly. It's just the process that you do after the extraction. So for a live resin, you could whip it into a wax. You could let it sit in jars until crystals form, and or I don't know exactly how it's done, but let it sit until crystals form in a certain type of heat. Same thing with that you can do with rosin, diamond jam. Let it sit on a heat plate for a long time. So it's all about the method that you do to preserve the oil. It's not always just about the solvent necessarily. So then we have isolate. Oh, wait, we just skipped over diamonds. Let's read that one. Crystals of THCA, the main active ingredient in cannabis, must be kept cool, almost always found in sauce. Okay, there you go. Sauce and diamonds go together. Good job. Found in tinctures and edibles, isolates of CBD or THC are the purest form of these active ingredients, popular in medical use. Okay, yeah, so this is when you have a powder form of a pure 99% CBD, THC, any cannabinoid really. And going back up to the distillate, kind of the same thing as just like pure, generic, straight up. There's no entourage effect, there's no any of that. It's just the pure THC, the pure CBD. So again, not my favorite, but if you're looking to expand into legal hemp and cannabinoid industries, this is probably what you're gonna want to look to use, at least for now, for some stuff. There's not that actually I should phrase that differently. This is the most common thing people are using right now, but it can be done with everything else that I've mentioned on here so far. Next up, okay, Keef. So basically that's, well, okay, everyone knows what Keef is, but we can just say it's a slightly less refined version of bubble hash, sort of. Potent golden green dust, a collection of cannabis resin glands called trichomes. Find it at home in your grinder. Yeah, so just there's more plant matter in there. It's another dry sift, but that is key. It's pretty similar to hash, but just more actual plant matter in there. Butter, aka butter, batter, light, creamy, white gold product or super high quality production, very terpy, very pure, can be made with fresh frozen buds. So, yeah, batter, wax, what's the difference? They're just different consistencies. I don't know. I don't think people really use these terms anymore. Kind of outdated. Shatter, aka amber glass. Never heard someone say that. Solid, translucent, glass looking extract. Poetry of form and function. Can be very pure, terpy, smooth, and shelf stable. Yeah, honestly, I miss Shatter. Haven't seen a company really trying to put out Shatter in a while. There's just something about the how easy it is to work with that I enjoyed and got you really high, tasted good. I miss Shatter. On what? The apex of pure terpy modern extracts. Flan is wet with terps and paired with dabrigs. Highly refined, 4 times the price of gold. All right. I do not know what flan is. Never heard of it. If you have, let me know. Maybe I'm wrong, but probably someone trying to push one of their products through an article on here. But yeah, overall, I would say I think it's good that this stuff is being made and talked about, but I don't think it was made correctly at all. I think it's pretty much you just need to highlight the difference between distillate, solventless, and BHO, and then you need to understand the differences between those and the methods that they use after the fact once it's been extracted. So storing, how they do all that. So that's really what makes it different. It's the solvent and then what they do after. So let's take a look at the comments, see what some people say. Hold on. Yeah, okay. Never heard of flan before. Yeah, I don't know. By Fantasy Flan. Okay. Yeah, no one knows what flan is. It has to be some specialty product being made by like one lab. I've been doing almost exclusively dabs for like 5 years, have been to dispensaries in 3 states, and have bought the most expensive dabs I can find. And I've never even heard of that shit, let alone seen it for sale. It sounds nice. I like the idea of something less messy than sauce, but with the same flavor. And only 250 per gram. Yeah, no, that's not really a real thing, I think. I don't know. I don't know how this Leafly person, if they made it up or if they found it somewhere. Oh, hey, should be dividing them into 3 categories: distillate, resin, and then solventless. Each will have subcategories, then each of those subcategories will have their different types of consistencies. Distillate, isolate, is bottom of the barrel shit, just like the name says. It's distilled down to THC percent or a specific cannabinoid. You just need large amounts of cannabis biomass to produce stems, trim, whatever you can find. You have to thoroughly clean the product before use. This is the stuff you get flavored products in. Resin is your mids. You have to somewhat start with okay material and you're retaining a bit more of the cannabinoids than the plant has to offer. Still a science project that needs to be cleaned up before use. They at least don't add flavoring and keep it more true to the plant. Solventless /rosin. Fire in, fire out is the motto. It is fully intact trichome heads that have been separated from the plant using water as the mechanical separator, carrier, or by falling off on its own. Everything the plant has to offer you unharmed. Vaporized, dab, ice water hash is the purest form to smoke. This is the end game. Nothing is cleaner, nothing gets more natural. Once you hit this tier, you may start only dealing with 6-star ice water hash because now you only want the finest developed trichomes. I.e., solventless covers all forms of hash. Hash has many versions: bubble hash, ice water hash, temple ball, dry sift, etc. Some hash can be used to make rosin, which is made by just using heat and pressure on those trichome heads. Depending on what type of hash was used to make the rosin, that will also have its own category: live rosin, cured rosin, dry sift rosin, etc. Rosin will have its own consistencies too. Live rosin can be manipulated from the taffy-like sticky sap form to a batter/butter consistency. Depending on how you cure that batter, you can end up with that flan or piatea consistency too. You can also manipulate live rosin to make it from sauceless diamonds by applying heat over time. Okay, yeah, so that's the piatea thing again. So we need to do a deep dive on that. I haven't been to Spain in a long time, so I'd like to see for myself. But maybe flan is kind of along those lines, even though it didn't really look like it from the picture. But anyway, the live term should mean that they cut the plant down right as the trichomes growing on the plant are fully upright and slightly milky, then placed in the freezer to preserve that state. Once frozen, you start the extraction. Cured means they cut the plant down and cured the flower regularly as if you're going to smoke some bud, but once it's done, you just go and start the extraction instead. There's both live resin batter and live rosin batter. Since the first part is just telling you the state of the starting material, the second is telling you what type of concentrate it's coming from, and the last part is telling you what consistency it'll be in. Edit, spelling. Okay. So yeah, I agree with pretty much mostly all of this. It would be pretty, maybe for a future video, I'll make a chart and we can put extraction method on this side and consistency on this side, and then we can try to come up with all the correct names for what things should be called in between. That would be really fun, actually. And I mostly agree with everything he said, besides the fire in, fire out, and that the resin is your mids. I agree. I prefer solventless. I prefer hash all the way, even if it's like lower than 6-star. I just think it's more fun. I like the material. I like how it smells, all of that. I like touching it with my hands. You can't touch live resin really. It gets everywhere. So I do agree about that part, but the problem is you can put fireweed into into resin, into BHO extractions, and depending on the strains, you can get really high quality, and with the methods, you can get live resin, in my opinion, very, very high quality still. And same thing, you could put lower quality into the hash. So I think the distinction is important, but I think ranking them as better, one better than the other, is kind of opinion, even though I do agree with this person's opinion that I prefer hash. So let's see. But yeah, this person overall, very, very passionate. I like that. I understood many of these words. Ninja went to weed college. Okay, here, someone says, why is distillate bottom of the barrel and why is solventless top tier? Do different highs actually differ so much that the type of high is discerned based on the product smoke? Edibles are my preferred, but I also vape for the economics of it. I assume they both use distillates, but he's saying that I should look at smoking more pure product. I'm a noob. So I agree with, I should have mentioned that earlier. Yeah, I agree completely with what he said about distillate being bottom of the barrel. I think it has its uses, but it's not, it doesn't have flavor. It doesn't have a natural plant entourage effect. So for edibles, I mean, you still prefer other stuff, but I'd say that's probably when you're going to want to be using distillate the most, is just to eat it. I wouldn't really want to smoke it. Eat it, just eat it if that's your only option. Eat it. You can eat rosin too, so I would rather do that. And this person says, okay, he's combined distillate and isolate for some reason, so it's a little off. Isolate uses the different boiling points of the cannabinoids to get 99% pure THC, but just the THC or CBD or CBN. But they isolate that one compound. This misses out on the flavor of the original plant, but all the synergistic slash entourage effects you get from all the other terpenes and cannabinoids that were in the plant. So snobbier smokers will say it is smoking without soul. That is, this is also a rumored reason you are seeing more people freak out and get super paranoid a lot more now. Besides the high THC content, there is no CBD, CBG, CBN, and other things may help keep the THC in check. We don't know. RSO is also a form of distillate. Oh, that's a good point. And that's as full spectrum as anything else other than the live rosin, which they put on dry ice right after harvest and try to pressure everything. Solventless methods preserve the actual little pods THC and its buddies are stored in. All those trichomes are separated from the plant mechanically rather than chemically, which helps preserve them, but also stops a bunch of fats and oils from getting into the mix when the solvent strips them too. Then you have to separate the solvent, which is usually with heat and vacuum, and heat can damage things. But resin uses metal plates heated to a few hundred degrees, so I think the point is a little moot. Different strains produce different highs because of differing levels of cannabinoids and whatnot. So different extraction methods can produce different highs similarly because they will also extract different cannabinoids in different levels. It's also a lot like wine, beer, whiskey, and whatnot. Some people get really fucking into it, and someone is out there willing to take their money and tell them a pretty story. It's mostly flavor chasing mixed with bragging rights. If you like box wine, enjoy your box wine. No need to get mad at yourself or jealous of others. You aren't drinking some rare vintage stuff from a fancy cup poured by a beautiful woman in an exclusive restaurant in a far off land. Okay, so I do agree that isolate and distillate should be grouped together, but I think just because of that's the most common form that we see them in, is just this pure THC distillate, whatever. But his point about Rick Simpson oil is interesting. I wonder. So this is something maybe someone can comment, tell me more about. But is it possible to make higher spectrum distillate? And why does no one do that if that's the case? So I think I'll just end it on that. Thank you so much for watching. We're going to be doing more of these coming up, and yeah, I hope you have a good day. Thank you.